So for a while, I've seen how everybody says it's AIPAC that's controlling America. No, it's not them, actually. It's the Jesuits. It's the Catholic order. They even control AIPAC, which makes sense because then they can make the innocent Jews look bad or have everybody attack them. Yeah, it's the Jesuits. They're in the banking system. They're the tentacles underneath everything. And it makes sense. It's why I said the Catholic Church is the false church. And for those that want to get in my comment section, like on YouTube, and say, no, it's the fullest, most truthful church ever, I will chalk you up to a Jesuit. I know that many Jesuits have been led astray, but at some point, because it seems that while they say they're about Jesus, everything they do is more just to gain more power. Like there's a reason I said yesterday that at that hospital I worked at, the nun was also a lawyer, because that's how it works. Let me zoom in. It's a network. And what the Black Pope is the Black Pope is the general of the Jesuits, like a priest, but a general of the general of the Jesuits is the Black Pope. So their history, though, it's about getting into everything. So most of the people in the House and the Senate are Jesuits. Now, many people would say all that means is that it's tied to the Catholic Church. Yeah, but when you're part of the Jesuit order, they're the best infiltrators of all. They've been doing it probably the longest because they study you to decide if they want to bring you into their realm. And so that's why they have a network of lawyers. It's all this. This is why, I mentioned yesterday how Kennedy, he said in one of his last speeches that, the dangers of secret societies. And so it's all this. This is no different than your Skull and Bones. This is the only difference here is that they bring it on the heels that they're about making the world better. They just want control over the world. They've been controlling. They're underneath the banking system. They've controlled the families. I mean, it's a network. It's a total network into everything. They get into everything. That's the reason why the Catholic Charities has so much control over the state wards in most states. That's why they're at the border. In fact, this is what really why I would never support the Catholic Church is this. The Jesuit organizations denounce continuing attacks on asylum in the United States. Yeah, the Catholic Church can shove it up their ass. Yeah, if you love America, then why would you support the Catholic Church? They're not about America's freedoms. They're not about our founding. They're not. There's so many articles. They're outright with it that no, they feel Biden hasn't let enough migrants in. That's the reason you have, one of the biggest organizations, Catholic Charities, there at the border, helping to move as many people in. So then the reason that's such a problem, too, they try to wrap it up with scripture. Well, they're wrong. Jesus wanted borders. It's very simple. There's a reason he wanted borders and not open ones. And it's because throughout the whole Bible, I don't know why the Jesuits didn't know, God was always trying to keep the people that he was trying to keep with him from getting in with the Canaanites and the Hittites and all those people. So borders were very important to God, but I wouldn't expect the Jesuits to know that. It's not like they understand the Bible or even understand Jesus Christ. They're more about power and control. That's what they're about. That's the reason a nun would go on to become a lawyer, because it's a network. A nurse going on to be these Jesuit nurses being, and I'm not saying at every leadership position they're all Jesuit nurses. And I know I said I wouldn't trust a nurse from a Jesuit sorority. The reason I wouldn't is because they'll be indoctrinated. It's no different than your Skull and Bones. They'll be indoctrinated to believe that the getting up higher in the nursing leadership is what's most important. And I say what's most important is we should have good leadership. We don't, because I would say, your American Nurses Association got its tentacles in because of the Jesuits. It goes back. They go back to the Inquisitions. They go back to everything. They're very good at studying people, and so they do it through different networks. That's why they have a network into every industry. They have a network into every profession. But what they stand for is things that are harming our country. And this is exactly why I can't stand any of the associations of nursing. They all go back to the Jesuits, because the Jesuits itself is an association of professionals and experts, yeah. And they support open borders. So it's a known fact that when you support open borders, you will have a mass human trafficking problem. That's why you shouldn't have open borders. So why does the Society of Jesus, and especially a nursing profession, support things like that? That's why I go off on the nursing profession so much. The people that set the standard of care. Yeah, they ripped all over Trump for securing our border. And look at what has happened now. All this human trafficking, all this migrant crime. And yet the Jesuits, the Catholics, they support. Like, you can't support America then, because this is not supporting America. It's not supporting Jesus either. Let's see on Judgment Day if I'm right or not. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that Jesus didn't want open borders. It's pretty obvious if you ever read the Bible. But they lie to people, and they say they're about the Society of Jesus, and then they put their crosses on or whatever, and pretend like that they're somehow religious, and really they don't even do that. They just, they're a network that helps each other out. A Jesuit priest on how faith informs Biden's leadership. Sure it does. Yeah, that alone is a reason to get away from the Jesuits and the Catholic Church. It's a false church. It couldn't be about truth if it tried. It's a network. The Jesuit Scientist Pope. Yep. Argentinian Jesuit priest named George Mario Bergoglio became Pope Francis in 2013. Prior to entering the seminary to train as a priest, Pope Francis studied chemistry at a technical school in Buenos Aires and worked as a technician in a food science laboratory. Oh, this is what I mean, that this is how the network works. And see, the border wasn't open enough. I mean, it's been fully open for 4 years, but that wasn't enough for the Jesuits. We are deeply concerned by the Biden administration's persistent attempts to restrict the right to seek asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border, working on the ground with migrants. So you're helping illegals come into our country. So the Catholic Church doesn't support our values. It doesn't support any values except its own value of wanting control and power over people, which is why they don't stand. Everything they do is in direct opposition to Jesus. They look like the Pharisees. They don't behave anything like Jesus. But all they have to do is convince people, no, we're the first church. We're a church full of truth. This is what I see happening, is that these people are so good at always being successful in their goals, is that God has totally put a delusion on them. They think nothing can stop them. But if you know anything about how God does things, he likes to do it that way. Let them fully think they have this in the bag, and then he wipes the hell out of them out. He makes it as humiliating as possible. He does. That's what he does. That's why there's a delusion. That's why he talks about a delusion on people. So if people are going to get in my comment section and say this stuff, then I would just say, maybe if you can see it all, or pray, or take a suggestion, you might have a delusion on you to call the Catholic Church a truthful church. It absolutely is not. It's false. 100%.